So once again, back with history of media. In today's class, we'll have a discussion over the 80s, 1980s, how the politics, how the culture and connectivity evolved, and then we discuss about the birth of the cable. Because earlier we started out with cable, next came wireless, and everybody had button mobiles, and after that came smart mobiles, and after that everybody started connecting to Wi-Fi. Okay, and the process went on. Okay, so earlier when we were marching our way or maybe experiencing our way through the internet, we were using AOL. Okay, so that was the platform we actually used, and after that Google got popular, and World Wide Web. Through the World Wide Web, it began to take its roots, and everybody started using Google. Okay, and then we discussed about CNN and MTV. That was pretty much old. That was the earlier network. Okay, we had HBO. That was what we discussed in the last class. Then we discussed about cyberspace, Reagan election, and the Kodak digital camera. Even in the home, I have one Kodak key. Okay, it will be making a sound similar to the Kodak camera. Okay, so that as a masterpiece, I'm just having them in my home. Okay, and this is with the CCD additional facility. We have this Kodak digital camera. Okay, so this is especially for you, my dear students and young researchers, and you can reach me at dr.christoananth@gmail.com. So before beginning the session, once again, let me thank God for giving me this golden opportunity to deliver this useful session, to share my knowledge among my fellow national, international participants, students, and young researchers. So we'll have a short introduction over the 1980s, politics, culture, and connectivity. Then we discuss about economics and then political science, about the culture of the public organizations. Then we try to understand the fast thinking concept. Earlier, it was slow thinking. Nobody had the reason to think because everything was comfortable. Now we are made to think faster because we have to survive in this competitive world. Okay, and then we'll understand the freeze effect during the 1970s. That was how internet came on to, and then we discuss about the various growth of the program networks through the paper television. Okay, and then about the communication and then the browsing. Then we discuss about the AOL, specifically AOL, that we will be explaining for the beginners, and then AOL joined with oath, and naturally the process didn't work out well. Okay, so that we will be discussing. Then of course the CNN, MTV, and then the cyberspace. Of course, finally we are going to end this class with the Kodak digital camera with the CCD. So over the 1980s, if you can see, everybody all around the world, we were experiencing mass poverty. Even though there was mass poverty, the life was very simple. Okay, so accounting was pretty much simple. Over the years, there has been some very minimum increase in the communication facilities, but everybody had some radio FMs. They were listening the news. If my parents can tell me the stories, if my relatives can tell me the stories, like 8:30 in the night to 9 o'clock in the night, they had 30 minutes. Okay, only 30 minutes. During the 30 minutes, they will be having some movie songs, and then there will be some news also. News only 10 minutes. Very speedily they will tell the news, and after that, that's all. So that was the oldest means of communication, and if you can say, like, poverty was at the peak. Okay, so if you can consider the socio political analysis, everything was expected in terms of culture, but nothing worked out really well because there was economic poverty. Okay, so there was a case when there was rejection of democracy at several levels, and people were running shortage of money, and we are still into pretty much wantedness towards the communication facilities. So by 1980s, we had some policy choices also. Uh, every regulation, every procedure, policy, everything started to change. Cultural explanations were actually abandoned, and people were told only false stories, okay, about each and everything, because what you know you are trying to propagate, so that was prevalent, and communication media was actually absent, so nobody knew what actually is. So this was actually transformed across the years, okay, across the medium through different regions, okay. So during the 1990s, we had this economy and political analysis which were reflecting in different structures, and political parties also came into revolutionizing these practices, and they started building up the models, okay. So we had a fertile communication between this economics and political science, which were completely exemplified. Okay, and we had the policies to be growing at a very slow rate. Okay, so that was the thing. Even we can say Soviet Union during the 1990s, it had a little downfall, and that was the reason you got independence. Yes. So that was also one such thing, because the policies, procedures were not clear, and they were not in a mind to develop or maybe take the communication facilities to the next higher standards. Right. So with the case of democratic process also, and the ballot also, there has been fraudulent activities that they were going on. Okay. And if you can say like voting, like direct voting. Earlier, now we have EVM, electronic voting machine, but earlier they were using paper. They were putting in a ballot system. Okay, the counting will there. Okay, so ballot fraud, bribery, giving the money, and then getting the votes. Everything was there. Okay, during the 1990s itself, it started. I can also say there are some countries where the parties have won just because of ballot system, just because of the bribery. Okay, so even if you can compare like a normal election, this like a bribery, okay, with the bribery, and maybe if you can compare with the clean elections, no problem at all, without bribery, even the leaders have come up honestly. In that case also we had some poor economic performances, okay. So even honest elections also, we had problems of social peace, or maybe no good economic management also. So maybe if you take in the case of African countries, maybe like Ghana, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, all these countries, we had the same thing. Okay, the leaders were elected honestly, but social peace was not there. Economic problem was also there. So we had this scenario. Okay, if you can see in the 1990s, like in the Middle East, democratic elections had President Maliki in Iraq and President Morsi in Egypt. They had a social collapse. So this originated during the 1990s. It was very clear environment, but they had a social collapse. Okay, right. As I told you, Ghana, Zambia, everything had economic crisis. Even now also I can say Zimbabwe has been experiencing economic crisis. So if you can implement the policy procedures or maybe regulations, some standards that we are having with the case of special interest, even political factors also, like maybe we can say, okay, if this political party comes, maybe they can save their country. Maybe this political party comes, they will completely ruin us. Okay, maybe you will have some belief. Okay, that case also it was not being saved, because absence of media and then communication facilities was also not there. So whatever they propagated spread through the people, and that became the global thing in the whole country, and everybody were not able to save the particular country from the economic crisis. So like between 1990s to 2000, yeah, between 1990s to 2000, like economic factors were playing a major role. Everybody started to think about that. Even I can say in some parts of the country we had like water problems also, so that also everything contribute to the economic crisis. Okay, so people were having a very hard time. Whatever the facilities that we are enjoying also, the corruption started, workforce, everything, corruption started. Okay, so organizational performance is mainly because of the policy, standards and procedures. If that was not properly laid out, means if that actually started during the 1990s, if that was not proper, which means that everybody started to think their own way. Okay, so culture is very very important. The direct means, and then whatever policies that we are trying to follow has to have a positive scenario. Okay, so we'll have some cultural explanations also. So based on the political economic analysis, we are having, or we are defining cultural explanations. So you can define cultural explanation, okay, like we cannot be freestanding, but it can be grafted into rational choice analysis. Okay, so if you take in the case of economics, if you take in the case of psychology, okay, the art of understanding the people and what is actually laid out has to have a broader impact, and also the people should feel comfortable with the policies and procedures. During the economic crisis, like the people have to stay comfortable no matter the situations, and also they should march forward for the communication, for the communication facilities available. So these were the major causes for laying out the cultural explanations. Then before, like again during the 1990s, like everybody was comfortable, okay, but still, like when the situation, when the policies, when the economic crisis started to take an upper turn, which means that everybody started to think on their own, and everybody is into fast thinking. Okay, so this one you call it as the behavioral economics. Okay, where fast economics plays a vital role in the decision making process. Okay, so maybe group favoritism, favoring only one group, other group you are not even taking care of. Okay, why you are favoring one group? Because some important person in that party has the too much of money. Okay, so they form a group. Okay, and they try to make the processes much easier for them. So everybody started to think on their own. So this is how we naturally evolved to behavioral economics, and everybody started to think first. Okay, even if you can say the current scenario, I don't know what practice you follow in this country. In our country, like if you have to buy a land, okay, so maybe you should have a written agreement. Also, that thing is being fed into the computer. It can be checked anytime. It can be checked anytime. Earlier, there were not documents also, just a small piece of paper. Normally, they will say like $1 document or maybe $2 document. Okay, so that much only that document. So that was actually exchanged between the two parties. Okay, just $1 worth $1, just $2 during that time. Okay, so they were exchanging between them, and they were putting some stamp. Okay, that was actually the scenario. But now the case, we are entering everything in the digital media. Okay, and that number can be checked anytime. And that was the case that started during the 1990s. We had some various differences in the economic performance, like people who are into thinking, fast thinking, and those who are into group favoritism were able to achieve greater economic affairs, and of course connections, collaborations, and then of course the performance also was changed. Okay, this was the history of cable. So back during 1948, when United States in the region of Arkansas, Oregon, and then Pennsylvania were established the first communication, the first history of cable, where we had a poor reception over the air television signals. Earlier days, I don't know whether you have seen the movies, cinema, I don't know. Earlier, when we used to set the TV, only one in the whole region would be having TV. Maybe he would have been Kata Adam. Maybe he would have got money, he would have taken. Okay. Another one thing, transportation or maybe importing to one particular area, and after that in the balcony you have to go, you have to set the cable, the antenna you have to adjust antenna. Okay, whether you are getting the signal, whether you are getting the signal, they will be asking, and after that only at one particular point you will be getting a signal. Okay, then everybody like 30 people will be there, 40 people, the entire compound will be having or maybe enjoying the TV. Yes, but if there is sudden rain or maybe some lightning happens, then the signal will get spoiled. Okay, so this was the poor reception. We had community antennas which were built across the mountain tops at the high points. So that was used to broadcast the signals. Okay, so in 1952 there were 70 cable systems which served 14,000 subscribers nationwide, and after that, even for long distance communication also, it was very like a few hundred miles away, and distance communication only if you pay more money you will be getting the signals, and of course the reception of the programs. Also the programs also were limited. So this was the freeze effect during the 1970s that we will express. Okay, so during 1962 we had 800 cable systems naturally increased. So from 14,000 subscribers we had now 850,000 subscribers in business. So competitions of course by the local TVs. So distance communication also they started reducing the price. Okay, because everybody were competitively progressive for the communication. Okay, so it was the Federal Communication Commission (FCC). They had some restrictions for the cable TV systems to import the digital television signals. Okay, so actually this was the major problem that they did. Okay, they had a restriction on the distance television signals, and that during the 1970s, early 1970s, there was a freeze effect. So which means the cable TV systems were unable to provide service for the distant users. Okay, because from the TV signals or maybe TV programs from the far end, they were not able to supply. So that is the reason they were not able to get these services. Okay, so we were establishing a freeze effect during the early 1970s. So commission also continued. Even 1970 also the commission continued. There was limitation in offering movies, sports events. Like 1970s also we had several sports events, national, international events that they couldn't get it. Okay, even there was limitations on the syndicated programming also. So the collaborations, everything was brought into halt. Okay, until 1972 we had the policy of this freeze effect. Okay, and of course since everything was into freeze, the cable deregulation started to happen. Okay, so money for cable growth and expansion, everything dried up. Even they were ready to spend money for the cable, but the cable TV systems were unable to provide services because of the distance signal freeze effect. So it was at that time, you should actually appreciate the HBO channel. Really? 1972, Charles Dolan and then Gerald Levin of this Manhattan Cable, they launched the nation's first pay TV network, which is the home box office, which is HBO. So from that only the national satellite distribution system took a major turn, okay, and there was much growth of the program networks. Now after that, cable television started to think in a different way. Okay, these programs they got linked to it. Okay, and I still remember like we used to pay way, almost free for some time, and after that we started to pay 50 igrama bish. So that was for the 1 month or maybe 2 months. Okay, so satellites changed the business dramatically. There was explosive growth of the program networks, and of course, satellite. We had the local television station in Atlanta, which were broadcasting this sports as well as classic movies only because of the introduction of HBO. Okay, and after that we had R.E. Ted Turner. He was distributing these cable networks, okay, as a superstation. So from the superstation we had collaboration with several TV programs. The subscribers again they try to increase, so there were around 60 million houses which were cable subscribers, and everybody started to watch this program networks, which actually started with the home box office. Have you heard about AOL? American Online. American Online. Have you heard about it? Uh, before the Google, before the Google, if you want to see any news, AOL had a very fairly simple procedure. Very simply, I can say AOL is nothing but for the beginners, just insert a CD or maybe like what you call DVD now. Just connect it and then follow the steps. You can connect to the internet. That's all. Okay. So that is the thing. Okay. So maybe it was born as Quantum Link in the 1985. So before this HTML, now normally you can use HTML tags. Okay, hypertext markup language. Whenever you have to design any website, you have to type the tag. Something appears in bold, something displays in italic, something has a background like this one. The menu, like what you have with a blog. Blog is something you can type, you can write, okay, and it gets feeded up. It gets appears in the Google. Okay, okay, as a website, but it is not actually a website. It is not actually a website. For example, christoananth.blogspot.com. It's a blog. christoananth.com is a domain. I know. You have to pay. You have to get the functionalities. You can have a backend. Okay, every year you have to pay for money. Blog is something. It is available for free by the Gmail or maybe from the Google. You have no payment. Free. Bepul. Yeah, yeah. Backend you should enter, and maybe for having some functionalities you can have like HTML tags. Is it what lifestyle like this? Yeah, like lifestyle, like cooking, like games. You can do anything. I follow such thing, but I have never done it. Okay, you can turn this blog into a website if you have more traffic for your blog. You call it as SEO, search engine optimization. Huh? Okay. Right. So maybe if your website, I mean the blog gets popular, then Google will approach you whether we can change your blog into a website. Okay. So even in YouTube also you have now the functionalities. Yeah. For example, if you have monetized, if you have verified your channel, they will ask maybe you can type a website or maybe you can type a blog. We can display the ads, and for every person who clicks on that, you will get money, but very less.